Hello and welcome back, friends. In this video, we'll talk about the poem The Ballad of Reading Gaol in detail. In 1891, Oscar Wilde got attracted to a beautiful young poet, Lord Alfred Douglas. He is also called Bossy. In 1895, Douglas's father, the Marquis of Queensberry, accused Wilde of sodomy. In the second trial, which is often referred to as the trial of the century, Wilde was found guilty of indecent acts and he was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor and sent to Reading Gaol. The poem, The Ballad of Reading Gaol, tells the story of Charles Thomas Woodridge. Woodridge had murdered his wife Laura Ellen Glendale and was sentenced to death. He lives his life wistfully in prison. Wilde and the other men are jealous of his attitude. In the second section, Woodridge is hanged. He accepts the death bravely. Wilde describes the terror of jail. The poem has 109 stanzas and is divided into 6 parts. So let's begin to discuss the poem line by line. First of all, let's look at the title of the poem. The title is The Ballad of Reading Gaol. The spelling of the word jail is G-A-O-L and not J-A-I-L. Reading is the place, and jail, the spelling of the word jail is G-A-O-L and it is J-A-I-L. So that is the story about the prison of Reading, which is also called H.M. Prison, Reading. So let us look at the first stanza of the poem. He did not wear his scarlet coat, for blood and wine are red, and blood and wine were on his hands when they found him with the dead, the poor dead woman whom he loved and murdered in her bed. He did not wear his scarlet coat. Scarlet coat, scarlet is the blood red color. So poet is saying he, the person he referred to here is Woodridge. Woodridge did not wear his scarlet coat. For blood and wine are red, and he did not wear his scarlet coat because blood and wine are red. Similarly, he speaks in the next line, and blood and wine were on his hands. There was blood and there was wine on his hand when they found him with the dead, when he was found with the dead, a dead body of a person. Who's this dead person? The poor dead woman whom he loved. The dead person was the woman whom he loved and murdered in her bed. Speaks about the person who murdered the woman whom he loved and he was found there in her bed. The poem opens abruptly describing the intended prisoner. The intended prisoner is Woodridge. The first line of the poem takes the reader directly to the scene of the murder. Wilde describes the moment directly after Woodridge was found with his wife. The man did not wear his scarlet coat at the time because blood and wine are red. Wilde is describing the fact that Woodridge took off his Royal Horse Guards uniform before committing this crime. There is a mistake here. To maintain the rhyme, Wilde refers to the coat as red, but the color of the coat was actually blue. Royal Horse Guards were also known as the Blues. There is another mistake. Laura was murdered in the street, but Wilde places her in the bed to suit the poem. Let us move on to the next stanza. He walked amongst the trial men in a suit of shabby grey. A cricket cap was on his head, and his step seemed light and gay. But I never saw a man who looked so wistfully at the day. He walked amongst the trial men. Trial men means men under trial. There were some men who were under trial, and Woodridge used to walk amongst them. And how he walked? He wore a grey-colored suit of shabby grey. Shabby is in a bad condition or worn out. So he used to wear a worn-out suit, and there was also a cricket cap on his head. But when he walked, his step seemed light and gay. Generally, the steps of a prisoner would seem heavy and sad. But here, poet says that his steps seemed light and gay. And he further says, but I never saw a man who looked so wistfully at the day. I've never come across a man who looked so wistfully at the day. Wistfully means showing longing for something. Historical records show that Woodridge deeply regretted the murder of his wife and was satisfied to spend his remaining days until his execution in prison. Therefore, poet says, he looked so wistfully at the day. I never saw a man who looked so wistfully at the day. Now let us move on to the next stanza, stanza number 3. I never saw a man who looked with such a wistful eye upon that little tent of blue which prisoners call the sky, and at every drifting cloud that went with sails of silver by. Poet says he never saw a man who looked with such a wistful eye upon that little tent of blue. The little tent of blue means they could see only a limited portion of the sky, blue sky, which prisoners call the sky. Prisoners used to call this little tent of blue as the sky because that was a small sky for them. They were not allowed to get out of the prison. And at every drifting cloud, he also used to look wistfully at the sky and also at the every drifting cloud that went with sails of silver by. Sails of silver by means clouds looked like ship with silver sails. The sails of a silver color. It is an explanation, and here you can say the poet is using metaphor for the clouds, metaphor of ship for the clouds. Narrator never saw any man who looked at the blue sky and the drifting clouds so wistfully. That is what poet tries to say in this stanza. Let us move on to the next stanza, stanza number 4. I walked with other souls in pain within another ring, and was wondering if the man had done a great or little thing, when a voice behind me whispered low, that fellow has got to swing. I walked with other souls in pain. I means prisoner himself, poet himself, narrator himself, he used to walk with other souls in pain. Other souls in pain means other prisoners, other souls in pain here. Within another ring. Wilde was not in the same cell as this man was. So he says, I walked with other souls in pain within another ring. Ring is prison cell. And was wondering, I was thinking and was wondering if the man here is Woodridge, if Woodridge had done a great or little thing. What kind of crime Woodridge might have committed? If he has committed a small or big crime, that is, I used to wonder, says the poet. When a voice behind me whispered low. When a voice from behind came, it whispered in a low voice, spoke in a low voice. And what did this voice say? That fellow is Woodridge. That fellow has got to swing. Woodridge has got to move forward and backward. That means he is going to be hanged. That is what poet say. Poet does not know whether the man is Woodridge, had done a great or little thing. He gets a clue from an inmate behind who says in a low whisper that fellow is got to swing. He knows now that the man in question is on death row waiting to be executed. Let us look at the 5th stanza. Dear Christ, the very prison walls suddenly seemed to reel, and the sky above my head became like a cask of scorching steel, and though I was a soul in pain, my pain I could not feel. Dear Christ. Now when he listens to that, listens to what? Listens to the voice which says that Woodridge is going to be hanged. Then poet says, it is poet's reaction, Dear Christ, the very prison wall suddenly seemed to reel, move unsteadily. As soon as I heard this, I felt that the walls and prison was moving unsteadily, and the sky above my head became like a cask of scorching steel. And the sky above my head, the sky became a helmet. Cask is helmet of scorching. Scorching is extremely hot, scorching steel. Sky became the helmet of extremely hot steel. And though I was a soul in pain, I was also a troubled soul because I was in the prison. But when I heard that, my pain I could not feel. I could not feel my own pain when I heard that this man is going to be hanged. This revelation about the pain, Woodridge must cause the narrator to reel. It sends his head spinning, and it is as if the walls are moving. The sky that hangs above Wilde's head became like a metal helmet of a knight's costume. It is as if the world has compressed itself around the speaker, and he is trapped in an even greater nightmare. He forgets his own problems and feels the pain that Woodridge must be experiencing. Let's understand stanza number 6. I only knew what hunted thought quickened his step, and why he looked upon the garish day with such a wistful eye. The man had killed the thing he loved, and so he had to die. I only knew, poet only knew that because he was told that man is going to be hanged. What hunted thought? Which hunted thought quickened his steps? What made him move fast? Quickened his steps, made him move faster. And why? He looked upon the garish day. Garish is unpleasantly bright. Why he looked upon the unpleasant day with such a wistful eye, with such a longing eye. Why did he look at the sky with the longing eye? Because the reason the poet comes to know is that the man had killed the thing he loved. Because he had killed the thing he had loved, and therefore he had to die. There is no option. Here, Wilde understands the fact that this man is wistful because he knows he deserves to die. Woodridge has accepted his fate and finds peace there. Stanza number 7. Yet each man kills the thing he loves, by each let this be heard. Some do it with a bitter look, some with a flattering word. The coward does it with a kiss, the brave man with a sword. Now poet tells, okay, it's okay that man has killed the thing he loved and he is going to die. But each man kills the thing he loves. By each let this be heard. Let everybody listen to this, that each man kills the thing he loves. How they kill? Some people do it with a bitter look. Some look bitterly and kill the thing they love. Some with a flattering word. Some speak full of praise and compliments. And then they kill. The cowards, those who are cowards, they do it with a kiss. The coward does it with a kiss. And if someone is a brave man, how does he kill? He kills with the sword. Here, poet wants to say that all men destroy what they love most in one or the other way. Some ruin relationship with a bitter look, some through the misplaced flattering word. There is a portion of a male population that betray ones they love in fear. Some, like Woodridge, are brave in their choices. Wilde does not condone Woodridge's act. He sees it as a brave act. Stanza number 8. Some kill their love when they are young, and some when they are old. Some strangle with the hands of lust, some with the hands of gold. The kindest use a knife because the dead so soon grow cold. Some people kill their love when they are young, and some people kill when they are old. Some strangle. Strangle means to kill by squeezing the neck. Some strangle with the hands of lust, lusty hands. Some with the hands of gold. Some use money for it. The kindest, one who is kindest, he uses the knife. Why is he kindest? Because the dead person soon grow cold. Here, poet says that the thought that all men kill what they love is expanded in 8th stanza. Some kill their love when they are young, while some kill when they are old. Some are lusty and do it for their lust, while some use their wealth for it. Those who are kindest, they use the knife because dead is relieved of the pains very soon. This is the very idea that poet wants to communicate through the 8th stanza. Now let's try to understand the 9th stanza. Some love too little, some too long, some sell and others buy. Some do the deed with many tears, and some without a sigh. For each man kills the thing he loves, yet each man does not die. The poet wants to say that some men love moderately, while some men love a lot. Some love too little, some too long, for a long time. Some sell, some people sell the love, while some people buy it. Some kill the thing they love with a lot of tears in their eyes. Some do the deed with many tears, and some without a sigh, while some people do it without any sign of regret. But for each man kills the thing he loves. Every man kills the thing he loves, but every man does not die. That is what poet wants to say. Woodridge is dying, but everybody who kills the thing he loves does not die. Only a few people like Woodridge, they die when they kill the thing they love. Let us move on to the 10th stanza. He does not die a death of shame on a day of dark disgrace, nor have a noose about his neck, nor a cloth upon his face, nor drop feet foremost through the floor into an empty space. The idea in the earlier stanza is continued in the 10th stanza too. Everybody does not die. Only a few like Woodridge die. He is the cowardly person who does not die the death. Okay, he does not die a death of shame. Death of shame is the death that brings the shame upon the person. And when on a day of dark disgrace, disgrace is loss of respect and reputation. I mean, there is no respect and no reputation for the person when he dies such a death. On a day of dark disgrace, nor have a noose about his neck. There will be no noose. Noose is a loop with a running knot, which is kept around the neck of a person who is to be hanged, nor have a noose about his neck, nor a cloth upon his face. There is always a cloth upon the face of the prisoner who is to be hanged, nor drop feet foremost through the floor. Through the floor, feet of a person who is hanged, they get into an empty space, nor drop feet foremost through the floor. The floor opens and man gets hanged into an empty place. The man who does not own up the killing of a thing he loves is one of the cowards. He does not experience the things that Woodridge is forced to. He does not die shamefully on the day of disgrace. There would be no noose around his neck, and his face will not be covered by the cloth. His feet will not drop through the floor into an empty space. This is the idea that the poet wants to communicate through this stanza. Let us talk about the 11th stanza. He does not sit with silent men who watch him night and day, who watch him when he tries to weep and when he tries to pray, who watch him lest himself should rob the prison of its prey. He in this stanza again refers to the cowardly person who does not die for killing the thing he loves. And silent men is prison guards. So Woodridge sits with the prison guards. Woodridge has to do all these things, but the person who does not die for killing the thing he loves does not have to do all these things. That is what poet is speaking about. He does not sit with the silent men. That means he does not need to sit with the silent men. The man who does not admit to killing the things he loved does not need to be with the silent men who watch him night and day. Night and day, prison guards, they watch him night and day, who watch him when he tries to weep, and when he tries to pray. Every time they keep on watching the person, who watch him lest himself should rot. And why do they watch? They watch him because he should not steal the prison of its prey. He should not die, or he should not get out of the prison. He should be there in the prison. That is what they do. They watch the prisoner so that prisoner should not kill himself and deprive the prison of its prey. Prisoner is the prey here. As Wilde and Woodridge are constantly watched, but the man who does not admit to killing the thing he loved is not being watched. That is the idea communicated in this stanza. Let us move on to the stanza number 12. He does not wake at dawn to see dread figures throng his room, the shivering chaplain robed in white, the sheriff stern with gloom, and the governor all in shiny black with the yellow face of doom. He again is the same person who does not admit to the killing. He does not wake at the dawn to see. Dawn is early morning when light first appears in the sky. Dread figures, dread are frightening figures. Throng is crowd, come together to fill. He does not wake at the dawn to see frightening figures crowded in his room. The shivering chaplain, the trembling chaplain, stern with gloom. He is very serious and with a sad feeling. Gloom is sad feeling. The governor is the governor of the jail, all in shiny black. Shiny black is the suit of the jailer. And governor all in shiny black with the yellow face of doom. This man does not wake up at the dawn to see the dead people of the prison around his room. He does not have to see the chaplain in the white clothes and the governor in shiny black clothes on the day of his execution. This is the idea here. Stanza 13. He does not rise in piteous haste to put on convict clothes, while some coarse-mouthed doctor gloats and notes each new and nerve-twitched pose, fingering a watch whose little ticks are like horrible hammer blows. He here again refers to the same cowardly person who is not in jail. But the people in the jail have to suffer these things, but that person does not have to suffer. He does not rise in piteous haste. Piteous haste means haste that makes feel pity or sadness. Prisoners have to get up in the piteous haste to put on the convict clothes. What are the convict clothes? Clothes of the guilty person. While some coarse-mouthed doctor gloats and notes. Some coarse-mouthed, coarse is rough-mouthed doctor gloats. Gloats is expresses in unpleasant way. He gloats and also notes. What does he note? He takes the note of the things. What things he notes? Each new and nerve-twitched pose. Each pose taken by the prisoners. He notes. And how does he note it? Fingering a watch. He fingers a watch, touching the watch with the finger. Fingering a watch whose little ticks, the little ticks of the watch, little hands of the watch, whose little ticks, these little ticks of the watch are like horrible hammer blows. The prisoners feel that little ticks of the watch are like horrible hammer blows. Try to understand what poet has to say. On the morning of the execution, the convict is forced to rise in the haste and redress in his convict clothes. There is a doctor outside the cell who is there to note everything the man does, even on his way to death. Each new and nerve-twitched pose is written down. The doctor does it by pointing the finger at the watch. The little ticks of the watch are like horrible hammer blows. That is the idea. Now stanza number 14. He does not know that sickening thirst that sands one's throat before the hangman with his gardener's gloves slips through the padded door and binds one with 3 leathern thongs that the throat may thirst no more. Look at these lines. He does not know that sickening thirst. Sickening is thirst that makes one sick. Sickening thirst that sands one's throat. Sands fills the throat with the sand. It chokes. That sands one's throat before whom? Before the hangman with his gardener's gloves slips through the padded door. Padded door, door of the pads. Gardener's gloves, gloves of the gardener. The hangman wears the gloves of the gardener and binds one with 3 leathern thongs. Thongs, narrow strips. He binds the person with these narrow strips so that the throat may thirst no more, so that there will be no thirst afterwards. The man who does not own up to the deeds will never know the sickening thirst in the throat as the hangman enters into the room. This man will not ever experience the binding of his hands with 3 leathern thongs. Soon the man who is being executed will no more feel the thirst. Stanza 15. He does not bend his head to hear the burial of his read, nor while the terror of his soul tells him he is not dead, cross his own coffin as he moves into the hideous shed. Burial office is the office order for execution. Terror is extreme fear, and hideous is extremely ugly. The person who is to be executed hears the burial office read. The person who is not being executed or who is not in the prison, he does not have to bend his head to hear the burial office read, his order of his execution read, nor while the terror of his soul tells him he is not dead. Terror of his soul, the threat of his soul, extreme fear of his soul tells the prisoner that he is not yet dead because he is not yet hanged. Cross his coffin, he crosses his own coffin and moves into the hideous shed. What is the hideous shed? Hideous shed is the shed, extremely ugly shed in which the prisoner is to be hanged. The person who is to be executed hears the burial office read. Burial office is the edict or office order issued by the person in power. He is often reminded by his terrible soul that he is not dead. He has to cross the coffin made for him while he moves to the shed where he would be hanged. The person who does not admit that he has killed the thing he loved does not have to go through these ordeals. That is the idea here. Now let us move on to the 16th stanza. 16th stanza is the last stanza of the first section. He does not stare upon the air through a little roof of glass. He does not pray with lips of clay for his agony to pass, nor feel upon his shuddering cheek the kiss of Cypas. He does not stare upon the air. He does not look at the air continuously. Stare is to look continuously. He does not have to look continuously at the air through the little roof of glass. There is a very small roof of glass through which he has to look at the air. He does not pray with the lips of clay. Lips of clay means clay cold lips. A person who is about to die will have the clay cold lips. He does not pray with the lips of clay for his agony to pass. He wants his agony to go away. Therefore, he prays. The prisoners pray. Nor feel upon the shuddering cheek, shuddering, suddenly shaking hard, nor feel upon the shuddering cheek, his cheeks, shuddering cheeks. The kiss of Caiaphas, he will not feel the kiss of Caiaphas on the shuddering cheek. Caiaphas is the high priest of the Jews that presided over the assembly that condemned Jesus to death. The kiss of Caiaphas is the kiss which is not required. It is unwanted kiss. The person who is to be hanged feels this kiss, but the person who is not going to be hanged does not have to face all these things. Try to understand what poet has to say here. The lips of the cowardly person will never feel as if they are made up of clay as he prays for his agony to pass. The last thing this man will not have to feel are the lips of the Caiaphas. Caiaphas is the priest in the Bible who organized the execution of Jesus Christ. Death will not come to this cowardly man in this manner, but it will come to Woodridge in this way. Look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. Air, glass, clay, pass, cheek, pass. The rhyme is A, B. Air is A, glass is B, clay is C, pass is B, cheek is D, and Cypass is again B. So A, B, C, B, D, B is the rhyme scheme. If you take these lines together, this will become, two lines become one line, and it become a stanza of 3 lines also if you take them together. But there is again the beauty in it, because if you see the first line, he does not stare upon the air. There is internal rhyme in the line itself. Stare, air. Look at the third line again. He does not pray with lips of clay. Pray, clay. There is again the rhyme. So this adds to the delight of the poem. There is a lot of delight in this poem, and it is also very nice poem to read, and thematically too it is also a beautiful poem to understand. This poem brings out the greatness of Oscar Wilde as the poet. I hope you have understood and liked the first section of this poem. See you in the next part, in which we'll be discussing the next section of this poem. Thank you very much for watching this video.